Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Michi Makes Up. Today, we're gonna look at Rephr brushes. Rephr kindly sent to me their core brush set plus brush 22. I will show you all of them really shortly here. I've had them for several weeks now. I really wanted to take the time, give these a try before I sat down to make a video. And for those who have seen my Dior Birds of a Feather collection video, in that video I actually did use, I think I did use all of the brushes just to get a feel for it, and then since then I've used it multiple times as well. I had been previously very curious about Rephr brushes and how it compares to my existing Japanese brushes. So today I'm going to share with you all my thoughts and also demo them once again. If you had been looking into getting into fude, but price being a barrier to entry for you, you might find some of these brushes intriguing and good for you to try. So I did take out Natasha Denona's mini retro palette. It's been some time since I've created a look using this palette. The announcement of a meaty size, I think it's meaty size, retro palette really spurred me on to take out the mini retro. And if you guys had seen it, you would have noticed there is an absence of a in-demand shade. I believe we were all looking for more of these type of shades mixed in with the pinks and mauves and taupes. So it'll be interesting. I will likely pick up that palette for review, and actually I do think the shadows in that palette's really beautiful, but I don't think it's really retro-esque. I don't know. We'll see what it's like. We'll take a look at the swatches. So anyhow, I'm going to use this today, and the Rephr brushes that I did receive are the core set. So the core set contains 3 eye brushes, brush 1, 2, 3, and then 2 face brushes, 4 and 5, plus brush 22. This is the brush a lot of beauty content creators talk about and are really obsessed with. I think that it's okay to say, like, yes, people are obsessed with this because it, from what I hear, it is very similar to Tom Ford's now retired face brush, which I don't have, so I can't really say how similar the two are. So this is brush 22, and they also sent over a brush holder. These brushes are not Rephr brushes, but it is spacious, so I've kind of used it to store other brushes. And I do like that, I'm not going to close it because this fluffy brush right here, I do like that you can close this. So if I needed to, I could put all of the brushes I want to take to travel, let's say, put them in brush guards, put them in here, close it, and know it's in this like secured hard exterior package, and then yeah, take it to travel with me. But when it's at home, if I take these two apart, this can also be a holder as well. And I am running out of room, so it was very nice of them to send me a holder as well. Let's get on with it. With each of the brushes here, I will briefly just source some information from Rephr's website. We'll start with the 3 eye brushes because these I'm going to use first. So with brush number 1, a luxurious multi-purpose eyeshadow brush designed for effortless shading and blending. Brush 01 has been carefully calibrated to work for all eye shapes. And this brush does remind me of a few existing brushes in my eyeshadow brush collection. So I have these 3 here, and they're all Sonia G brushes, and you guys know the majority of my collection is of Sonia G's brushes. So I have here, this is the Worker brush from the Lotus set. And then this is the Worker Pro from the Pro Eye set. And then we have here the Soft Shader from the Sky Eye set. I would say the 01 is not a dupe in shape to the 3 brushes I just held up. There certainly are elements that are similar, so one being that it's undyed goat hair. So I can use this for creams if I need to, and I could also wet this brush as well. I do think with the way it functions, it does remind me of the Worker brush. The Worker brush is denser or more densely packed here, and it is flatter, that paddle shape, and it comes up to this dome and it is just a little bit flat right at the top. This brush here is less wide, the number 1, and it is skinnier, more narrow or narrower, and then it goes up to a dome. It does have like a few hairs here that are flat in surface, but not quite the same. The flat surface here, you can see, it's very deliberate and noticeable. So while they're fluffy and they're really good for blending, they're not the same. So the Worker Pro is a bit smaller than the number 1 brush. It also has its paddle size again, so it's a little bit neater, packed tighter here, and it comes up to a nice dome shape. And I think that dome shape most resembles this. However, this is also much fluffier. The hairs and the way that they kind of fall and form that dome shape is much neater. This one tends to fluff out a bit more. And then finally, for the soft shader here, the soft shader comes up to a pretty thin taper. And it's actually really, this brush is useful for getting at an angle to those areas to draw if you needed to. And that's why this is also a very versatile brush for that reason. And it can be used to pack on shadow. This is actually my first Sonia G set of brushes that I got, and I would use the soft shader specifically for like chunky shadows, anything that had very visible glitter in it, like Pat McGrath shadows or special shades. I find that this really picks it up well. I think it has something to do with being undyed hairs, and second, the shape of it. Like I could just really go in at an angle and kind of wiggle it around to get the product on. It would not replace putting on or packing on those type of shadows with a finger. It provided good base. So that's how I use this brush initially. So anyways, with all that said, let's move on to actually using the 01. Going into this shade here, Vintage Taupe, putting that all over the lids. Given the size of this, doing an all over lid shading is quick and easy. And I think it picks up a good amount of product, deposits it, it's easy enough to blend out. Then I'm adding the shade Industrial, going back in with the 01. So I want to use that to deepen this area above the lash line. And I'm going to blend upwards. Now I'm going into the shade Pixie here. I'm using a different brush, just this fluffy crease brush. And I'm just going to add that right onto the center of the lid, going upwards into the crease. Taking brush 02, and this is a Rephr brush. I'm going to use that for, oh, hold on, let me backtrack here. I always screw up with the Natasha Denona palettes because when you flip it on the other side, the placement of these names, I mean, it aligns with here, but the way that I think of it, I always flip it around. So anyhow, I apologize for that. The shade that I put above my lash line, that green, is actually called 60s. Now I am ready to go into Industrial. So, to clarify, this is Pixie, Vintage Taupe, 60s, Industrial, and Galaxia. So using brush 02, I'm going to go into Industrial. I am putting Industrial also once again above that lash line. Because I want it to be highly visible when I blink. Repeat on the other side. And the 02, as described on the website, is a firm shader brush that's dense and soft at the same time. Optimized for maximum pigment payoff, works with both powders and creams, and is perfect for laying down pigments, quick smoky eyes, and delicate work near the lower lash line. So as you guys just saw, I used it for lower lash line, and it's the perfect shape. It's got that flat top right here, and if you wanted to use it as a shading brush, you can certainly do so as well. Although for shading, depending on how much I want to pack on, I actually prefer 01. And brushes in my collection that are similar. Let's take a look here. And the brushes that I have that I think shape-wise is going to be the most similar to 02 are these two brushes. We have from Sonia G the Lotus brush, and this is the Builder, because of its paddle shape, how it's flat, and then this brush is actually a little bit angled, but I would still use it to do the same type of jobs as the 02. So kind of that lower lash line, and then actually just mostly lower lash line, and then to smudge anything up here, I would use this brush. Then I have here, this is from Sephora. This is, I think it's just called a smudger brush. Yeah, I think it's just called Smudger. And I've had this for a long time. It's not very soft, but it certainly is dense and does a job for smudging. If you want to keep things, especially in kind of a straight line as you smudge, this did do the job for me many years until I upgraded my brushes. And although these two are quite a bit different actually, because the bristles on the Sonia G brush is longer, and it actually is a little bit fluffier. This is packed a little bit tighter and more neatly. Also, the Sonia G brush feels softer than the 02. The way that I would use them, I think this one I would probably use more exclusively towards doing that lining on the lower lash line and even upper lash line, or smudging, keeping that line shape. And I would probably use this for maybe more intense smudging. Like if I had gone in with this brush to do like the really heavy duty work, I could go back in because this is fluffier to keep the direction in kind of a line, but because it's fluffier, I think this might make a quicker job out of the blending part after smudging. Now I'm going to go in with a finger into Galexia and just popping that right on the middle, the center of the lid. Then taking the 03, I'm going to go back into Galexia, and I'm placing that onto the inner corners. And brush 03 is described from the website as a fine, pointed, and firm pencil brush that's unexpectedly soft, designed for detail work near the most delicate areas around the eyes. And true to its description, it is pointed, very precise. It does come up to, it's actually dome shaped, and at the very top it is flat, so you could use it like you would a pencil and draw. You saw me use it for the inner corners. I think it's perfect. I really do love the size of this brush. It does fill a gap in my collection. I don't have anything that's quite the size or the shape, although similar brushes that can do a similar job. I have here from the Lotus set, this is the soft definer, and then this is the flat definer from the Sky Eye set. So the soft definer is actually another favorite of mine, but notice that these two are both made up of dyed goat hair. And the flat definer is that it is flat, paddle shape, comes up to a dome with a slightly flat right at the top here. These three could probably do a very similar job, but this one I think will excel at the very detailed, the precise. So if I'm looking to, you know, draw shapes on the lid, this would be a go-to for me. And the soft definer really is a great multitasker because it's nice and soft, so I don't really have to be that precise or careful under the eyes, and I can use it to just add a little bit of smokiness, or you know, add a really soft transition shade just to give it a bit of color under there, but not really go for like a full-on smoky look. It could do that because it's soft. I just turn it on its side. Or if I'm going for something with more precision, then I turn it onto the point to do that. I think there's some really good use with this. Could you get the same kind of payoff with the soft definer versus the O2? I think you can get a similar payoff, but you'd have to do more work, because when you line under the eyes with this, the way it's shaped, how it's flat and how it's dense right at the top here, you're gonna make quick work of this. But if you use this, you're gonna have to go back a couple of times, and you might end up blending it a bit more or diffusing the product a bit more than you intend to. With the flat definer, I use this more before I got the soft definer. And the way that I use it, or the purpose I use this for now, is almost exclusively for inner corner and brow bone. The brow bone part was a surprise, because you think with the shape it's small, it doesn't scream convenient if we were to use it for this area. But actually for me, 2 swipes here, I'd probably end up doing 4 swipes, but 2 here would just cover the area. And with those brow bone type shades, you don't need to be too precise, you don't need to work too hard in diffusing. All you got to make sure is that it doesn't cover your eyeshadow colors right here. So given that its size, it's actually worked really well. That's basically how I would use these brushes together, side by side next to each other. They all serve different purposes. There is some overlap in what they could do. So I think it's just down to, if I were to go traveling, for example, down to the wire, which brush would I take with me? Because the one that can accomplish the most, even if I lose some precision, I'm gonna end up taking that one. And that would be the Lotus brush for me. Using House of Sillage Complexion Duo, I'm going into the blush here with brush number 5. So let me just wipe off the previous shade. Did pick up quite a bit of product. I swiped it 3 times. I'm gonna tap off the excess. Just tap some bit off. The nice thing about the House of Sillage blush is that it's a very universal shade, and it's very soft too. So it looks like maybe I was going to have too much product, but turns out I just got a good amount. And then for highlight, the other side here, I'm using brush 04, which has that nice angle here. Again, picked up quite a bit of product, tapping off the excess. And I'm adding that to the high points. And then going back in with brush 03, and it's the perfect size, I'm actually going to add the highlighter onto my Cupid's bow. And then finally going in with brush 22, I'm going to add bronzer. I'm using Victoria Beckham's Matte Bronzing Brick. You guys know I have been using this ever since I got it several months ago. So I basically just went into this shade here, which is Soleil. It's warming up the complexion. And then I'm going to go back into the deeper shade Honey with brush 04 again. And I'm going to just add it right here, just to deepen everything. And also to add some contour into the hollows of the cheeks. And for lips, I'm taking Lisa Eldridge's Songbird. This is her lip gloss. This is the finished look, and there's nothing really all that low-key about this look. It looks fairly natural, but when you look closer here, I've got quite a bit of blush, highlighter, and those sparkly eyeshadow look. I do like the mini retro palette, so very curious how that midi is going to look, the full size, once that's available. So I did not talk about the face brushes to any, kind of detail, which I will do now. So I first use the blush brush. This is brush number 5, and it is described as an ultra soft cheek brush that will instantly elevate your face makeup in a luxurious way. So I think it's very straightforward. It's a fluffy cheek brush, and you can really use it to, well, the way that it picked up product, I feel like you can use it to pack on blush. Or if you wanted something more pigmented, you can certainly achieve that with this brush. And then if you have too much, you could always flip it over to the other side to blend out. I do like that this shape and size, you could also apply the blush or blend out at an angle if you wish. I think the shape is very conducive to that, and the size as well. I actually do, I have a small face, and it may not seem like it, because it's just me in front of the camera, but I have a small face, and so it tends to be these type of, like anything larger than this, I'm really diffusing that blush. So I think this is like a good, like a sweet spot in terms of size and fluffiness. Brushes that I have for comparison are these two here, both from Sonia G's Sky Face Set. This is the Soft Cheek, and this is the Classic Cheek. So when it comes to undyed hairs, it's going to be the Classic Cheek. The Classic Cheek is actually, I had it in a brush guard after washing it the last time, so it, looks very uniform. It will fluff, or it should fluff out a little bit more, but right now it's just kind of like very neat. This brush really packs on product. I lightly dab it in once or twice. I got a lot, and what I end up doing is using the Soft Cheek to blend out. Because these hairs aren't dyed, you can use it for liquids and creams. Same thing with the Classic. I would prefer this over the Classic because this, in my experience, just packs on a lot of product, and because it's overall not even as fluffy, it's not going to be as forgiving. While I do have the Soft Cheek to come in and help me diffuse and blend out, this I think could, the way that I use it, would actually fulfill the purpose of these two. However, it does not replace the Soft Cheek for me in any way. The Soft Cheek is such a great dyed goat hair brush, and it's one of Sonia G's more popular brushes as well. It was recently restocked. I think it's still available. I'll link all the information below, but yeah, this has taken me through very pigmented blushes to, normal lightly pigmented blushes. It does everything really nicely. I can see myself using these two like hand in hand, really. Next I use brush number 4. This is the angled brush, and it is described as an ultra soft cheek brush that's angled to enable extreme versatility. Originally designed for contouring, the 04 has also been calibrated for precision application of blush, highlight, and bronzer. So I did use this for highlighter and bronzer today, or contour today, and this is very versatile. Because of the angle, you can get the precision blush application. You can pat on, you can use it to blend out, although you can use this to pat on and go back in to blend out. Or if you have multiple cheek brushes, you can also use something like this to blend out. And because of the angle, I do like it for highlighter because it just hits that angle right here. Because it's bigger, it's going to cover more surface area. So depending on what you're trying to go for, like today, I did want it to be more glowy, and I certainly didn't mind my highlighter covering more area than just like this strip here. And certainly I was very generous when I went in other areas afterwards to apply highlighter. So I really do like this brush for highlighter a lot. Then we went back in, I wiped it off, went back in with some contouring, which I think looks pretty good. I could probably blend it out some more, but I do think it looks pretty good. I think it's a little bit too big for the nose area, but if this is the only brush I had with me, I think it could do the job. It certainly could do the job applying the contour more here. I think it's perfect. It's perfect for these areas here and this area too. I would say likely I'm going to end up using this more for highlight than contouring, because for contouring, especially around the nose, I'm going to use this brush here, which is from Sonia G, her Lotus set. This angle, very handy. Also, it's smaller, so to cover this is so easy. It's almost like it's made for this area. I mean, it's not, but it feels like it. And then I do like how the blending looks when I do contouring with this brush. Just a little bit more of this. Just a bit more than this. I think it does have to do with just the bristle length and how this is not packed very tightly or densely. This is way denser, which means the product can go on much more concentrated, and this will just kind of blend everything, diffuse everything, and just shear everything out. And I think this is going to take some time, and if you are not careful, you go in with a bit more pressure, you might end up moving some product underneath. So just knowing the way that I apply makeup and what I'm used to, I think I would prefer that for the contour here. Yeah. And finally, for brush 22, this bronzer here, this is described as a incredibly soft and luscious bronzer brush that will instantly elevate your makeup routine in a luxurious way. I agree with that. It's very fluffy and it is very soft. As you can see, I just made very quick work of my bronzer. Just didn't think about it too much, just applied it that way. And it felt very effortless to blend the bronzer. I don't know if you could say doing this just a few times, like very absent-mindedly, would be any kind of blending. The brush does the work. I think what I'm trying to say is just the brush will do the work for you. This is, I understand the hype. I understand the hype now. And it feels great on the skin. It's just fast. It makes everything quicker. Prior to brush 22, I had been using the Kihitsu Pace 1 brush. This is supposed to be the same as the Koyudo BP brush 002, which is also angled. Although I do think the bristles on the Koyudo looks a little bit longer. Anyhow, they're supposed to be the same spec other than the ferrule and the handle. So I really like this for that angle here. And I can see this would be good for diffusing contour. If it was a bit too concentrated and I just needed to look a little bit more natural, it would be good for that. So I still really like this brush, but I've been reaching for the 22 way more often for the reasons I just stated. And while the 22 reminds me of the BP 13, this is actually a foundation brush. I wanted to show you anyway and just put them side by side. The difference, this brush is the hairs are bundled together and the shape is meant for foundation application, like even mineral foundation. So it doesn't have the same kind of fluffiness, and the way that it's packed, it's very dense here. It will shear out any foundation applications you have, so it's really great for that, like maybe you have a thick cream foundation that you are trying to get a lighter coverage from it. Like you like how it looks, you just want a lighter coverage. This will do the job very beautifully. Also the flat surface here, not that great for bronzer. You could use it for bronzer, but I think it would be better for foundation. You can see how you just put it on and just kind of swipe with it. You could also use this area too if you wanted to. So I just wanted to show you the difference because in my collection, I do not have any other face brushes that are quite as, with undyed hairs, quite as fluffy as this. For a while, I had been using this for bronzer and contour because it was the only brush that I have. And the other brushes don't really usurp or replace this one here. It's always gonna be, you know, a good companion. For these areas. A fan brush you can also use for highlighter as well. So in fact, I would say because of the shape, this is probably more versatile. Like this would be the brush I would take with me to travel. I would just take this one because I could reach these areas here, get these areas like this if I needed to, do the contouring. Although when it comes to diffusing, these two are still the best for the diffusing of that contour right here. For an all-around brush, this one would do the job really well. And for how it feels, how quick it is, just overall bronzer, brush 22. Overall, my thought on these brushes is that Rephr provides a good step into Fude without requiring a huge investment up front. Now, if you go and get the entire set, you know, the prices are gonna really add up there. But if you were to get a smaller set or a couple of one-off brushes just to try, I think the barrier to entry is much lower. And you can also wait for certain brushes to be put into the concept store and be able to get them at a very steep discount, I think up to 40%. So those are options available. And one of my fellow beauty content creator here on YouTube, Julia, she's mentioned on her channel that, you know, she really wants to try Fude, Sonia G brushes, but it's just really difficult. Where she lives, by the time you add on shipping and all the taxes, the price of that brush, I think, nearly doubles. So it's quite difficult for her to justify that kind of investment when a portion of that is not even the cost of like the brush itself, and it doesn't go to the creator of the brush. So I think she ended up trying Rephr because they can just ship it to her without the additional taxes that she would otherwise be paying if it was with another brand. So accessibility is also something to consider. I think we all know when we shop online, we go for the retailer that has reliable shipping and has the goods in stock. Prices are comparable, and of course, if prices are less too, those are huge factors. Having said all of that, none of these brushes replace any particular brush that I have. I really like my Sonia G Koyudo brushes. I think they're just excellent quality. Although there might be some Rephr shapes that I'm going to, or Rephr brushes, I'm going to grab for more often due to their shape, and I'm going to show you what those are. First is, I don't think this is a surprise, this is brush 22. The bronzer just goes on really nicely, easily, blends really nicely. I'm not looking for precision work. I'm not looking for this brush to do like multiple things. So for that role I need it to do, it does it beautifully. I know I'll be grabbing for this time and again. Then there is the brush 03, that precision, and I don't have any shape quite like it, although during the demo I did not bring out my Pencil Pro from Sonia G. So the Pencil Pro here has that fine point, and you can use it to actually do a lot of the same things some of the other brushes I've showed you to do. You can use it for lining under the eyes, to draw shapes, to smudge and diffuse product, and also undyed hair means liquids and creams will work too. The difference between these two is that this has more give, so it's much softer. If you're looking for those like small delicate areas like the inner corner here, I do prefer that softer give over this. If I'm looking to draw a shape and I have to be very precise and I can't risk the brush having too much give, then the 02 is going to be my go-to. And I actually have used the 02 to draw like wing shapes and different things like that. It works really well. This might be good for the more, it just depends. It's actually good to have two different ones, just because if this one's already used with one color, I could use this as my other, right? Just like quickly reach for it, do something here. So the way that I see it is this level of precision gives you something that's maybe a bit more predictable just because it doesn't have that much give. Whereas this here, likely I'm going to use it for those more sensitive areas where I prefer the texture to be softer. And the other shape I'll be reaching for is 04. I'm going to use it for highlighter because, you know, especially if I don't need it to go in a very precise manner. It's just a swipe and then I'm good to blend out. I just like that angle, which I do not have this undyed goat hair angle shape with my other brushes. So it does fill a gap for now. Well, those are my thoughts on the Rephr brushes. Let me know below what you think of them, if you have any Rephr brushes, how you think of these brushes as it fits into other more established fude brands, our beloved brands like Sonia G, Hakuhodo, Chikuhodo, Koyudo. When it comes to Hakuhodo and Chikuhodo, I have one Chikuhodo brush, so I can't really speak to Chikuhodo, Hakuhodo. To any personal experience, like to that extent. But I'm sure many of you guys do have a number of those brushes. So let me know what you think. Thank you guys for watching. See you again in the next one. Bye.